The dusty streets of Tombstone, Arizona, shimmered under the relentless summer sun of 1882. Samuel Carter wiped the sweat from his brow as he approached the livestock auction, his worn leather boots kicking up small clouds of red dirt with each step. At 25, Sam had already seen more hardship than most men twice his age. His small ranch on the outskirts of town was struggling, the cattle were dying from drought, and his savings had dwindled to almost nothing. The auction yard buzzed with activity as ranchers, traders, and opportunists gathered around the makeshift platform where livestock was being sold. Sam clutched the last of his money, $37, knowing it wasn't nearly enough to buy the strong horse he desperately needed. His old mare had died the previous week, leaving him without transportation to tend his remaining cattle or make the journey to the nearest town for supplies. As the auctioneer called out lot numbers, Sam watched helplessly as prime horses sold for hundreds of dollars, far beyond his reach. The crowd was filled with wealthy ranchers from the big spreads, their pockets heavy with gold coins and their attitudes dismissive towards small-time farmers like himself. Then, near the end of the auction, a peculiar sight caught everyone's attention. A limping horse was led onto the platform. A once magnificent stallion, now reduced to a pitiful creature that could barely support its own weight. The horse's right front leg was clearly injured, causing it to favor the limb heavily. Its coat, though still showing traces of its former glory, was dull and unkempt. The crowd immediately began to murmur and laugh. "Look at that sorry excuse for a horse," shouted Jake Morrison, one of the wealthiest ranchers in the territory. "Whoever buys that lame beast is throwing their money away." The laughter grew louder as other bidders joined in the mockery. "That horse ain't worth the bullet to put it out of its misery," called another voice from the crowd. But Sam saw something different. Despite the obvious injury, there was still fire in the horse's eyes, a spirit that hadn't been broken. The stallion's build suggested it had once been a remarkable animal, and Sam noticed the unusual craftsmanship of its horseshoes. They appeared to be made of an odd, tarnished metal that didn't quite look like regular iron. "Hey there, friend. Before we continue with Sam's incredible journey, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this story. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love connecting with viewers from all around the world." The auctioneer seemed eager to move past this embarrassing lot. "All right, folks, let's start the bidding at $50 for this horse." Silence fell over the crowd. No one was willing to waste money on what they considered a worthless animal. $40. The auctioneer tried again, his voice betraying his desperation to make any sale at all. Still nothing. The laughter continued, and Sam could see the frustration building on the auctioneer's face. $25. Anyone. This horse has good bloodlines, I assure you. Sam's heart raced. $25 was within his budget, but buying a lame horse seemed like financial suicide. Yet something about the animal called to him. Perhaps it was the recognition of a fellow underdog, or maybe it was the way the horse seemed to look directly at him through the crowd. "I'll take him for $20, Sam called out, his voice cutting through the laughter. The crowd erupted in even louder guffaws. Jake Morrison slapped his knee and pointed at Sam. "Well, I'll be damned. Looks like we found ourselves a fool willing to throw good money after bad." $20 going once, the auctioneer called, clearly relieved to have any bid at all. "Sam Carter's lost his mind," someone shouted. "That horse'll be dead within a week." "Going twice." Sam felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he held his ground. There was something about this horse that spoke to him, something the others couldn't see. "Sold to the young man in the blue shirt for $20. As Sam made his way to the platform to complete the transaction, the laughter and jeers followed him. He handed over his $20, more than half of his remaining money, and took the rope lead from the stable hand. "You sure about this?" "Son," the auctioneer asked quietly, "that horse has been lame for months. Previous owner said he got caught in a rock slide up in the mountains." "I'm sure," Sam replied, though doubt gnawed at his stomach. Leading the limping stallion away from the auction yard, Sam endured a gauntlet of mockery. The horse moved slowly, clearly in pain, but it followed obediently. Sam decided to call him Thunder, remembering how magnificent the animal must have been in his prime. The journey back to Sam's ranch took twice as long as usual due to Thunder's condition. Along the way, Sam talked to the horse, sharing his own struggles and dreams. "I know what it's like to be counted out, boy," he said softly. "Maybe we can help each other." Back at his modest ranch, Sam led Thunder to the small stable and began examining the injury more closely. The horse's right front hoof was swollen, and there seemed to be something wrong with how the horseshoe was fitted. As Sam lifted the hoof to get a better look, he noticed that the horseshoe was loose and appeared to be made of an unusual metal that had a strange, almost golden tint beneath the tarnish. That evening, Sam's neighbor, old Pete Williams, rode over to check on him. Pete had been ranching in the area for over 30 years and had become something of a father figure to Sam since his parents died. "Heard you bought yourself a lame horse today," Pete said, dismounting from his own sturdy gelding. "Folks in town are saying you've finally lost your mind." Sam led Pete to the stable where Thunder stood quietly munching hay. "I know how it looks, Pete, but there's something special about this horse. I can feel it." Pete examined Thunder with the practiced eye of an experienced horseman. "He's got good bone structure, I'll give you that, and his bloodlines show in his build. But that leg—" Pete shook his head. "Son, I've seen injuries like this before. Sometimes they heal, sometimes they don't. You're taking a mighty big gamble." "Everything's a gamble these days," Sam replied. "At least this one felt right." Over the next several days, Sam devoted himself to caring for Thunder. He applied poultices to the injured leg, fed the horse the best hay he could afford, and spent hours each day gently exercising the animal. Slowly, Thunder began to show signs of improvement. The swelling in his leg decreased, and he seemed to be putting slightly more weight on the injured limb. But it was during one of these care sessions that Sam made a discovery that would change everything. While cleaning Thunder's hooves, he noticed that the unusual horseshoe on the injured leg was not just loose. It was actually designed to come apart. As he worked to remove it properly, the shoe separated into two pieces, revealing a hollow interior. Inside the horseshoe, wrapped in oiled leather, was a small piece of parchment covered in strange markings and what appeared to be a crude map. Sam's hands trembled as he unfolded the document, his heart racing with excitement and disbelief. The map showed a detailed layout of the surrounding mountain ranges, with specific landmarks marked and a clear trail leading to what was labeled in faded ink as El Dorado Cache. Below the map were notes written in Spanish and English, describing a hidden gold mine that had been worked by Spanish explorers over a century ago. Sam stared at the document in amazement. Could this be real? Was it possible that Thunder's previous owner had hidden this treasure map in the horse's horseshoe? The more he studied the map, the more convinced he became that it was authentic. The landmarks matched the local geography perfectly, and the aging of the paper suggested it was genuinely old. But Sam faced a dilemma. If word got out about the map, every treasure hunter and claim jumper in the territory would descend on the area. He needed to verify the map's authenticity and locate the treasure before anyone else discovered his secret. The next morning, Sam carefully examined the other 3 horseshoes on Thunder's hooves. To his amazement, each one contained additional pieces of the puzzle, more detailed maps, notes about the mine's location, and even a crude assay report indicating the richness of the gold vein. According to the documents, the mine had been sealed and hidden by Spanish colonists who were forced to abandon it during an Apache uprising in the 1750s. The maps showed not only the location of the mine entrance, but also detailed the internal layout of the tunnels and the specific areas where the richest gold deposits could be found. Sam realized he was holding what could be the most valuable treasure map in the history of the American West. But he also understood that finding and claiming the gold would be dangerous work, especially if he had to do it alone. Thunder's recovery continued to progress remarkably well. Within 2 weeks of Sam's purchase, the horse was walking without a significant limp, and his spirit seemed to be returning. It was as if the animal knew that his new owner had discovered something important and was eager to be part of whatever adventure lay ahead. Sam spent his evenings studying the maps by lamplight, memorizing every detail and planning his expedition to the mountains. According to the documents, the mine was located in a remote canyon about 30 miles northeast of Tombstone, in an area known for its treacherous terrain and occasional Apache activity. The more Sam learned about the treasure, the more he realized that Thunder's previous owner must have been involved in something significant. The quality of the maps and the detailed nature of the notes suggested that someone had spent considerable time and effort researching this lost mine. One evening, while Sam was studying the maps, Pete Williams stopped by for his regular visit. Sam quickly hid the documents, not ready to share his discovery with anyone yet. "That horse of yours is looking mighty fine," Pete observed, watching Thunder move around the corral with increasing grace. "Seems like your gamble might be paying off after all." "He's coming along," Sam agreed, trying to keep his excitement contained. "I think he's going to make a fine riding horse once he's fully healed." Pete nodded approvingly. "You know, there's been talk in town about you and that horse. Some folks are starting to admit they might have been wrong to laugh at you. Jake Morrison himself said he's never seen a lame horse recover so quickly." This news both pleased and worried Sam. The last thing he wanted was increased attention on Thunder, especially now that he knew the horse's true value had nothing to do with his ability to carry a rider. As Thunder's condition continued to improve, Sam began to plan his expedition to find the lost mine. He would need supplies for several days in the mountains, tools for mining, and most importantly, he would need Thunder to be strong enough for the journey. The maps indicated that the mine entrance was hidden behind a waterfall in a narrow canyon, accessible only by a treacherous mountain trail that would challenge even an experienced horse and rider. Sam spent hours each day working with Thunder, rebuilding the horse's strength and endurance, while also establishing the trust and communication they would need for such a dangerous journey. 3 weeks after the auction, Thunder was moving almost normally, with only the slightest hint of his former injury. Sam decided it was time to test the horse's readiness for more demanding work. He saddled Thunder for the first time and was amazed by the animal's response. Despite weeks of limited activity, Thunder moved with the grace and power of a horse born for adventure. His gait was smooth, his responsiveness immediate, and his endurance impressive. Sam realized that he hadn't just bought a lame horse, he had acquired a partner capable of taking him on the journey of a lifetime. The night before Sam planned to begin his expedition, he sat in his small cabin, studying the treasure maps one final time. According to the documents, the Spanish miners had extracted over $50,000 worth of gold from the mine before being forced to abandon it. In 1882 dollars, that represented a fortune that could set a man up for life. But Sam also understood the risks. The mountains were dangerous, filled with wild animals, treacherous weather, and the possibility of encountering hostile Apache bands. If something went wrong, no one would know where to look for him. As dawn broke over the Arizona desert, Sam loaded his supplies onto Thunder's back and prepared to leave his ranch. He had told Pete Williams that he was taking Thunder on an extended ride to test the horse's recovery, which was technically true, even if it wasn't the whole story. Thunder seemed to sense the importance of their mission. The horse stood calmly as Sam secured the supplies, his ears alert and his eyes bright with intelligence. As they rode away from the ranch, Sam felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension that he had never experienced before. The journey to the mountains took most of the day, with Sam following the landmarks indicated on the treasure maps. Thunder performed magnificently, navigating rocky terrain and steep trails with the sure-footedness of a mountain horse. By evening, they had reached the general area where the mine was supposed to be located. Sam made camp in a sheltered grove of pine trees, studying the maps by firelight and planning the next day's search. According to the documents, the mine entrance was hidden behind a waterfall in a canyon that could only be accessed through a narrow gap between two towering rock formations. The next morning, Sam and Thunder began their search for the hidden canyon. The maps were detailed, but the terrain had changed over the centuries, and some of the landmarks were difficult to identify. They spent hours exploring different valleys and canyons, following false leads and dead ends. It was late in the afternoon when Thunder suddenly stopped and began pawing at the ground with his front hoof. Sam dismounted to investigate and discovered that they were standing at the edge of a narrow crevice between two massive boulders, exactly as described in the treasure maps. The gap was barely wide enough for a horse and rider, and it led into darkness. Sam lit a torch and carefully guided Thunder through the opening, emerging into a hidden canyon that took his breath away. The canyon was a natural amphitheater, surrounded by towering walls of red rock and filled with lush vegetation, fed by a spectacular waterfall that cascaded down from the heights above. The sound of rushing water echoed off the canyon walls, creating an almost mystical atmosphere. But most importantly, the scene matched the treasure maps perfectly. Every detail was exactly as described in the Spanish documents. The shape of the canyon, the position of the waterfall, even the distinctive rock formations that served as landmarks. Sam's heart raced as he realized that he had found it. After more than a century, he was standing in the lost canyon that held the secret of El Dorado cache. Following the maps, Sam led Thunder to a specific point near the base of the waterfall. According to the documents, the mine entrance was hidden behind the falling water, accessible through a narrow ledge that had been carved into the rock face by the Spanish miners. Sam secured Thunder safely away from the waterfall and began his careful exploration of the area behind the cascading water. The spray was intense and the rocks were slippery, but he persevered, knowing that he was close to the discovery of a lifetime. And then he found it. A dark opening in the rock face, partially concealed by centuries of mineral deposits and vegetation. The entrance was exactly where the maps indicated it would be, and it was clearly man-made, with tool marks still visible in the stone, despite the passage of time. Sam's hands shook as he lit another torch and prepared to enter the mine. This was the moment he had been dreaming about since discovering the maps in Thunder's Horseshoes. He was about to step into a piece of history that had been lost for over a century. The mine tunnel extended deep into the mountain, with side passages branching off in several directions. Sam followed the main tunnel, using the maps to navigate the underground labyrinth. The air was cool and damp, and his torch cast dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. After what felt like hours of careful exploration, Sam reached a large chamber that matched the description in the Spanish documents. And there, scattered across the floor and embedded in the walls, was more gold than he had ever imagined possible. The Spanish miners had been forced to abandon their work so quickly that they had left behind not only their tools, but also significant amounts of extracted gold. Nuggets and gold dust lay scattered throughout the chamber, and several rich veins were still visible in the exposed rock faces. Sam stood in the chamber, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his discovery. The treasure maps had been accurate in every detail, and the gold was real. He had gone from being a struggling rancher to potentially one of the wealthiest men in the territory, all because he had seen something special in a lame horse that everyone else had dismissed. But as Sam began to collect samples of the gold to verify its quality, he heard a sound that chilled him to the bone. Voices echoing from the mine entrance. Someone else had found the canyon, and they were heading directly toward him. Sam quickly extinguished his torch and pressed himself against the wall of the chamber, his heart pounding as the voices grew closer. He could make out at least 3 different men, and their conversation suggested they were armed and dangerous. "The tracks lead right to the waterfall," one voice said. "That fool Carter must have found something important to come all the way out here." Sam recognized the voice. It was Jake Morrison, the wealthy rancher who had mocked him at the auction. Somehow, Morrison had followed him to the canyon, and now Sam was trapped in the mine with no way to escape. "Spread out and search every tunnel," Morrison commanded. "If Carter found gold, we're going to take it, and if he gives us any trouble, well, accidents happen in these old mines." Sam realized that his life was in immediate danger. Morrison and his men were claim jumpers, willing to kill for the treasure that Sam had rightfully discovered. He needed to find another way out of the mine, or he would never leave the mountain alive. Using his knowledge of the mine layout from the Spanish maps, Sam began to navigate through the side tunnels, hoping to find an alternate exit. The maps indicated that the Spanish miners had created several escape routes in case of Apache attacks, and Sam prayed that at least one of them was still passable. As he moved through the darkness, Sam could hear Morrison's men searching the main tunnels, their voices echoing through the underground chambers. They were getting closer, and Sam knew it was only a matter of time before they found him. Then, just as Sam was beginning to lose hope, he discovered a narrow passage that led upward toward what appeared to be natural light. Following the passage, he emerged through a hidden opening on the canyon wall, high above the waterfall. From his elevated position, Sam could see Thunder waiting patiently where he had left him, and he could also see Morrison's horses tied up near the canyon entrance. The rancher had brought 2 other men with him, and they were all armed with rifles. Sam realized that he needed to reach Thunder and escape the canyon before Morrison's men discovered the treasure chamber and realized that their prey had escaped. Using his knowledge of the canyon layout from the maps, Sam began to make his way down the rock face, moving carefully to avoid detection. The descent was treacherous, with loose rocks and steep drops, threatening to send him tumbling to the canyon floor. But Sam's desperation gave him strength and agility he didn't know he possessed. He had to reach Thunder and get away before Morrison discovered the full extent of the treasure. As Sam neared the bottom of the canyon wall, he heard shouts of excitement echoing from the mine. Morrison's men had found the treasure chamber, and their voices carried clearly through the canyon air. "Boss, you need to see this," one of the men called out. "There's enough gold in here to buy half of Arizona." Sam knew he had only minutes before Morrison would realize that he had escaped and would come looking for him. He reached Thunder and quickly untied the horse, mounting in one fluid motion. But as Sam prepared to ride out of the canyon, he made a decision that would define the rest of his life. Instead of fleeing immediately, he took the time to gather several large gold nuggets from a stream bed near the waterfall, nuggets that had been washed down from the mine over the centuries. These samples would be enough to prove his claim to the mine and establish his legal right to the treasure. Sam stuffed the nuggets into his saddlebags and then guided Thunder toward the narrow exit from the canyon. Just as they reached the gap between the boulders, Sam heard Morrison's voice shouting from the mine entrance. "Carter, I know you're out there. You can't escape. This gold belongs to me now." But Sam and Thunder were already through the gap and racing down the mountain trail. The horse moved with incredible speed and agility, navigating the treacherous terrain as if he had been born to it. Sam realized that Thunder's recovery had been even more complete than he had dared to hope. Behind them, Sam could hear the sounds of Morrison and his men mounting their horses and beginning pursuit. But Sam had several advantages. He knew the terrain from studying the maps. Thunder was proving to be an exceptional mountain horse, and most importantly, he had a head start. The chase continued for hours, with Morrison's men gradually falling behind as Thunder's superior conditioning and Sam's knowledge of the terrain gave them an insurmountable advantage. By the time the sun set, Sam was confident that he had escaped his pursuers. But Sam knew that his troubles were far from over. Morrison would undoubtedly try to claim the mine for himself, and Sam would need legal proof of his discovery to establish ownership. The gold nuggets in his saddlebags would help, but he would need more evidence to win a legal battle against one of the territory's most powerful ranchers. That night, As Sam made camp in a secluded valley miles from the treasure canyon, he examined the gold nuggets he had collected. They were of exceptional quality, with a purity that exceeded anything he had ever seen. The assay reports hidden in Thunder's horseshoes had been accurate. This was some of the richest gold ever discovered in the American West. Sam also realized that he now possessed something even more valuable than the gold itself: the complete set of Spanish treasure maps that proved the historical legitimacy of his claim. These documents, combined with his physical samples of the gold, would be powerful evidence in any legal proceeding. The next morning, Sam and Thunder began the journey back to Tombstone, but they took a circuitous route to avoid any possibility of encountering Morrison and his men. Sam needed to reach the territorial courthouse and file his mining claim before Morrison could establish any legal right to the treasure. The ride back to civilization gave Sam time to think about how dramatically his life had changed. Just weeks ago, he had been a struggling rancher facing financial ruin. Now, he was potentially one of the wealthiest men in Arizona territory, all because he had trusted his instincts and seen value where others saw only failure. Thunder seemed to understand the importance of their mission, maintaining a steady pace despite the challenging terrain and long distances. The horse that everyone had dismissed as worthless had proven to be not only Sam's salvation, but also his partner in the greatest adventure of his life. When they finally reached Tombstone, Sam went directly to the courthouse and filed his mining claim, presenting the gold samples and the historical documents as evidence of his discovery. The territorial judge was amazed by the quality of the evidence and the obvious authenticity of the Spanish maps. Word of Sam's discovery spread quickly through the town, and the same people who had mocked him at the auction now looked at him with a mixture of respect and envy. Jake Morrison arrived at the courthouse later that day, demanding that his own claim be recognized. But he had no evidence to support his case beyond his assertion that he had found the mine. The legal battle that followed lasted several months, but Sam's evidence was overwhelming. The Spanish treasure maps, the gold samples, and testimony from witnesses who had seen Thunder's unusual horseshoes all supported his claim. Morrison's case collapsed when it became clear that he had no legitimate basis for claiming ownership of the mine. In the end, Sam was awarded full legal ownership of what became known as the Thunder Mine, named after the horse that had led him to his fortune. The mine proved to be even richer than the Spanish documents had indicated, producing over $200,000 worth of gold in its first year of operation alone. Sam used his newfound wealth wisely, expanding his ranch, investing in other mining ventures, and becoming one of the most respected businessmen in the territory. But he never forgot the lesson he had learned at the livestock auction, that true value often lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered by those willing to look beyond appearances. Thunder lived out his days in comfort on Sam's expanded ranch, treated not as a work animal, but as an honored partner who had changed the course of his owner's life. The horse that everyone had dismissed as worthless had proven to be the key to one of the greatest treasure discoveries in the history of the American West. Years later, when people asked Sam about the secret to his success, he would always point to Thunder grazing peacefully in the pasture and say, "Sometimes the greatest treasures come in the most unexpected packages. You just have to be willing to see past what everyone else sees and trust your instincts." The story of Sam Carter and Thunder became legend throughout the West, inspiring countless other prospectors and dreamers to look for opportunity where others saw only failure. And in the dusty streets of Tombstone, where it all began, people still tell the tale of the lame horse whose horseshoes held the secret to a fortune, and the young man who was brave enough to believe in both himself and his unlikely partner. The Thunder Mine continued to produce gold for decades, making Sam one of the wealthiest men in the American West. But more importantly, his story became a testament to the power of seeing potential where others see only problems, and the incredible rewards that can come to those who are willing to take a chance on the underdog. In the end, Sam Carter's greatest treasure wasn't the gold he found in the mountain. It was the wisdom he gained from learning to look beyond surface appearances and trust in the hidden value that exists in the most unexpected places. And Thunder, the lame horse that everyone laughed at, became the symbol of that wisdom, proving that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the most unlikely sources.